All right, welcome back. I'm Frederica Whitfield. So the power of the pen already impacting people in the U.S. and around the world. Just hours after President Trump signed a controversial executive order suspending refugees and some Middle Eastern and African nationals from entering the U.S., we're seeing real-life consequences. At JFK Airport in New York, 2 Iraqis who had been granted visas are being detained after arriving in that city last night. One is a man who worked with the U.S. government in Iraq. Another was visiting his wife and child here in the U.S. They have now filed a lawsuit saying their detention is illegal. In Cairo, Egypt, some passengers with airline tickets for the U.S. turned away at the gate. Lawsuits are already being filed following these detainments. Joining me right now to discuss is Omar Jadwad. He is the director of the Immigrants' Rights Project for the ACLU. Omar, thank you so much for being with me. What can you tell me about the lawsuit your organization has filed or is about to file?
Has filed. We filed early this morning.
Okay.
And, you know, I think what we're seeing now is the real human cost immediately of President Trump's Muslim ban orders and his anti-refugee moves. You know, one of the petitioners in our case, one of the people who got held up at JFK Airport, is somebody who had been working for the U.S. military in Iraq for 10 years. To ban people like this as so-called national security risks or under the rubric of trying to improve national security is worse than laughable. It's despicable. The government is discriminating against people based on their religion. That's the only thing that explains what the government has done to all of these people, and in fact, you know, President Trump himself has been clear about saying that he wants to disfavor Muslims and favor Christians with respect to immigration.
So, Omar, let me ask you this, because in reading the executive order, I know you've had a chance to go through it, and there's a portion where it really kind of breaks down or gives a synopsis about what may have provoked in part this policy. And I'm reading now saying, quote, perhaps in no instance was there more apparent than the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, when State Department policy prevented consular officers from properly scrutinizing the visa applications of several of the 19 foreign nationals who went on to murder nearly 3,000 Americans, spelling out rather a justification as it spells out what this new executive order is about. Your response to that?
I mean, just look at the facts. Just look at the fact that one of our clients who had to satisfy the U.S. government that he had worked with and provided assistance to the U.S. military, putting his life on the line in Iraq for our country and our military, to say that keeping him out of the country is something that will make us safer. Think about the message that we're sending. We're not sending a message that says, you know, the United States is committed to treat people fairly and to be the beacon of hope that it's always been. We're sending a message that says, even if you have put your life on the line for this country in very difficult circumstances, just because you're a Muslim and we associate, you know, people like you with events like that, we're going to keep you out, even though we've gone through an entire process designed to make sure that you, in fact, did provide the assistance you say you did to the government. You know, getting testimonies from people you worked with in the military. I mean, it's just I find it hard to imagine a situation that's more clearly just wrong-headed.
Is it largely that you take issue that these are mostly Muslim nationals from these 7 nations? Is it that it is a ban, period, involving people who may have already been vetted, who have endured the scrutiny of upwards of 2 years of vetting? Is it the fact that there would be a ban at all of anyone to this nation?
Well, I think it's a combination. I mean, each of those elements is offensive and problematic and contrary to our values. The idea that on Holocaust Remembrance Day, that this government would say no refugees will be allowed into this country except potentially, essentially people fleeing minority religious persecution, which is defined in such a way as to, sweep in Christians with those claims and disfavor other people with those claims. So except for some Christians fleeing minority religious persecution, we're not going to let anybody into this country as a refugee for 4 months. And in fact, the way that plays out over time means that there's going to be an even greater interruption in refugees' ability to come to this country. The idea that we would do that on a day that's supposed to commemorate the Holocaust and that should remind us of the awful things that the awful mistake that this country made in not providing refuge to more Jews that were fleeing the Holocaust in those years is, astonishing in and of itself and deeply disappointing. But when you couple it with the fact that, Donald Trump has been promising for a long time now to institute a ban on Muslims entering the country. And now he has, in fact, followed through on that promise by creating a system that targets Muslims for exclusion and that favors Christians over Muslims, and that he's told us that that's what he wants to do with his program. I mean, it is a huge assault on our values as a country.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Omar Jadwat, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, President Donald Trump, while there have been 14 executive orders, this one thus far seemingly the most controversial. It is a busy day already today. This Saturday, he has phone calls with 5 foreign leaders scheduled in one day. He's talking with German Chancellor Merkel this hour. And then next hour, Trump will be is scheduled to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin. We understand that the vice president will be on that call with him. Stay with us. We'll